as we begin to and plan to get started. I am Celia Schlomer, and I am a family support coordinator at the University of Cincinnati Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. I do family engagement and community engagement across the lifespan. And in this room, and especially with this particular subject matter, I am going to tell you that I am not only a family support coordinator, I am a mom, an aunt, a sister-in-law, a daughter, and a parent. I said mom, aunt, sister-in-law, daughter, I think that's everything, to individuals with developmental disabilities and disability. So I come to this room as what I used to affectionately call a member of the club. And that's how I got into the field. It is not my education to be in the field of disability. I have a master's in communications, which can go almost anywhere, but I was in development and in public relations was my background. So, but because of my family, because of my children primarily, is how I ended up here. So especially with today, I felt like it was important that we connect, right? Because well-being involves connection. So I'm going to share with you my why very briefly. And it's my family. So if you look on the upper left, this is a picture of me with my sister. My sister was 12 years my senior, and I was the youngest and she was the oldest. And I think I've shared in rooms where a couple of you at least have been. But my sister was one of probably the last people that was institutionalized. So she left our home. The family story isn't real clear. Somewhere between 1 and 3. She was placed in a what we now call an ICF. And then eventually when all the larger, which different from an ICF, the institutions that existed before the 70s closed, she had moved to a nursing home, and she spent the rest of her life in the nursing home. My parents were told she'd live probably to the age of 5 or 6 at the most. And she lived to be 53. So a long time to be living in that space. I didn't know of her until I was 14. So just family culture and culture around disability was very different, but it brings a lens for me to this work of why it's so important. If you look to below that picture, those are my 4 kids, and they pretty much drive this train and everything else that I do. So in this space of talking about being a caregiver, that is my primary caregiving. My oldest received a late diagnosis of autism. She was the one that I always say affectionately brought me to this work. And it was more from the standpoint of being within the education system and trying to meet a child who was twice exceptional. But it has evolved into lots of different things, not just with her, but with all my kids. Up in the upper right, that's my niece, Grace. And Grace was my brother's oldest daughter. And in this picture, she is probably 14. Grace is now 25, and she works for a law firm down here in Cincinnati, and is starting to think about and plan for moving out. She's right now living in an apartment type setup in her parents' home, but she's hoping to move out. Well, I don't know who's hoping more, mom and dad or her, but it's definitely on the plate to be discussed. And then lastly is my sister-in-law, Kim, and Kim was also born with Down syndrome, and my brother's younger sister. And so it just comes to a place, and I think it's important in this space to think about who we are and what brings us to this work. If you've been in this room before, which I think a few of you have, besides me, you see with her great Halloween background, you see Erica, and Erica's part of the Family Resource Network Ohio. And so is Tracy. And that is a space that if you have not been to the website, I encourage you, Erica will put the website link in the chat. I encourage you to go. It's a great space. And there are so many opportunities to learn more and to share with other families ways to start dabbling in this thinking that we refer to a lot as charting the life course. Okay. I want to make sure that I would be remiss in not saying thank you to the folks that make this possible. Family Resource of Ohio is a great support system for those of us that are sharing this, ambassadors and otherwise, but also our 2 Ohio agencies, the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, and the Department of Education and Workforce. Without their funding and support and enthusiasm, we would not be able to be doing as much as we're doing at FRNO. This is part of a larger project that is part of the National Community of Practice Supporting Families. The work came out of the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and there's lots to learn and know if you go to their websites. You can tap into all that information. So if you are an informal caregiver or a support to someone whose goal it is to encourage rich conversations that empower and promote balance, you're in the right space. If you are an informal caregiver or support someone who has the goal of creating a vision and a shared plan or to problem solve to better identify what maintains balance in your life, this training is for you. And if you are ready to think about what needs to be done now and in the future to ensure feeling competent and connected, this training is for you. If you are a professional and it is in your mindset to build on your understanding of the people you support and their families, you're in the right place. If you're a professional who wants to encourage conversations about what the people you support may need to feel competent, capable, and balanced, you're in the right place. And if you want to help others think about choices, decisions, and experiences that increase their well-being, you are in the right space. But we're going to take a hot minute for you. Erica's going to launch a poll real quick. It's 3 simple questions. And I'm really going to ask even those of you that aren't on camera, for all of you to take a minute to answer that poll. Erica, did you launch it? Oh, there we go. Erica, oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to give it some time. So all of you that can, if you would please take the time. Anybody who knows me knows I try to be interactive. So. Hey, we got 8 out of 10. That's pretty good. All right. 10 out of 10. Woohoo! You guys rock. All right. So it's looking good. We're at about 40% that are above a 2, 80% are above a 2 on question 1. That how content are you? How supported you're feeling. That's good too. Most of us are at that 2. But we've got some folks that are going all the way up. And then I feel like the things I'm engaged in, you guys are good. And that doesn't surprise me because you showed up here too. So I love that you guys are in a mindset to think about how to take care of yourself and that, or those that you're working with and supporting. So I just wanted to kind of get a gauge on where everybody is as they come into the room. As always, whenever you join one of our Family Resource Network of Ohio spaces where we're talking about charting the life course, it challenges us to think of another way that we can use the charting life course framework to improve lives. We're being led by this core belief that all people have the right to live, love, work, play, learn, and pursue their life aspirations in the community. And well-being is tied exactly to that. We can't have well-being if we, number 1, don't feel like we have basic civil rights. And number 2, if we don't have a right to pursue those things that are super important to us with the people that matter to us. So I want to stop and we're going to use the chat because I don't want to waste your time coming to this space to thinking about your own well-being without being interactive. So I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. But I would like you to take a minute and in the chat, I want you to list at least one thing you've done this week to ensure your opportunity to live, love, work, play, learn, and pursue your life aspirations in the community where you live. You can put more than one, but one thing at least that you've done this week that you were pursuing your own right to live, love, work, play, and pursue your life aspirations. And I'm going to give everybody a chance to do that. So don't leave me hanging too long.
Did you say write it in the chat?
Yes, please. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Vicky. Alexandra, thank you. Relationship-based care. Oh, I wish I would have known about that, Amy. That sounds very cool. Volunteering at church. Hiked, a date with my husband, attended a book club, Bible study, hung out with friends, took a class. Oh, I want to know what class you took, Mercy. That's awesome. Something I don't get to do anymore. Went for a walk, supported my daughter with dance class. Now glance over these, those of you that are familiar. Tina, I practiced music for church. I didn't know you were a musician, Tina. Helped my mom, taking her to the store, watched a movie with my daughter. I love this. So take a look at this. And just for a second glance, those of you that are familiar with Charting the Life course, I'm seeing the domains. I'm seeing social, I'm seeing spiritual, I'm seeing daily life, I'm seeing relationship, I'm seeing community. It's just intertwined, right? So it's important for us to tap into that and think about that and be intentional in our work around that. And so easy to get bogged down by the other things that we're told by society are important. But again, in this space, the Family Resource Network of Ohio space where we're talking about Charting the Life course, we also commit to being person-centered, holding strong the duality, though, of recognizing that the person is always seen within that context of family, right? We can't separate those two very much. And all people exist within that core group of family, whether it's chosen family, blood-related family. We have lots of different ways that we create and maintain, and I'll even say for myself, avoid family. But it is still innately part of our social system that is built where we live. But as family members, we know that family can be messy and that the relationship or the dependency on family into adulthood exists for all of us in some capacity. And it's also valued and nurtured. There are still moments, though, I lost my mother years ago, that when something really big happens, my innate instinct wants to pick up the phone and call her, and I have to remind myself that she's not here. I am old enough that I shouldn't have to call or feel the urge to call another grown-up when something's going wrong. But that is innate because nobody wants to go through difficult things together or apart, alone, isolated. We want to do it together. So as we think about this, we can't support or plan with someone, anyone, without understanding them within the context of their current support system, their family, or what I used to call framily, those friends that are family. So within the context of Charting the Life course, we also have to keep in mind that family is defined by the person, right? In any moment, you know, I might have church family, but I also have my Charting the Life course family. And then I also have my birth family, etc. So we also want to remember that individuals and their families may need supports that adjust as the roles and the needs of any member changes, and they're all interrelated. And then lastly, that this is not dependent on where a person lives. You are not automatically family because you live in the same house as me. So keeping that in mind too. All right. And as professionals, we have to recognize that we're dependent on family members to do what we're called to do. We could not do our jobs without the help of families. And we have to acknowledge that and be very transparent because family members play key roles in identifying and securing those opportunities for their family members to fully participate in community, in the places that matter to them, in meaningful ways, and ensuring that they're able to live that life they want to live. And the Charting Life course framework and tools will always support a family within that person-centered vision. We also encourage the recognition that family life experiences fluctuate and they're impacted by each family member, not just the person with a disability. Each person's trajectory has the ability to impact everyone else's trajectory, especially that of a primary caregiver. Whether the family experiences disability or not, in addition, as family members, we each have roles of caring about and caring for each other in ways that support well-being. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Each of us is here today because as people, and possibly as caregivers, we want to find ways to balance well-being while providing the best support for the people we care about. I'm hoping that this is the beginning of an opportunity to explore practical strategies for managing stress, staying healthy, and ensuring both you and your loved ones are able to thrive. We know as family members that it's crucial to recognize and prioritize our own needs and our well-being. So this often gets pushed aside as you focus on planning and problem solving and supporting your loved one. So balancing these aspects is essential for your own overall wellness. So I want, again, we're going to be interactive again. So those of you that don't have cameras on, I'm going to poke you a little because I can't see you. Take a minute now to think about how many of the roles that are talked about on this slide you currently identify with. We're going to use the hand raise mechanism. So if all of you know how to reach that on your toolbar, we're going to raise hands. So how many of you currently are caregivers? Got Alexandria. Who else? Tina. Oh, I got to raise my hand. Where's my hand raise? Oh, I lost mine. I guess I can't raise my hand as a host, so I'm going to do this. Anybody else? I'm going to give you a hot minute. Oh, I see our Itara's hands up. And if you don't have the hand raised, you can raise your hand like I am because I couldn't find mine as the host. There you go. I was actually speaking directly to you, Vicki, because I saw you looking. I saw you. You're like me, trying to find it. Well, I'm hoping, there we go. I see Arlene. Thank you, Arlene. So yeah, all right, so next. How many of you have been caregivers before? Besides the current role you have? You can take your hand down if you've never, this is your first role caregiving. So I've been one. Thank you, Mike. So you've been a caregiver before. Okay, how about those who know inevitably you will be a caregiver? Okay. And lastly, how many of you believe you will need a caregiver? There you go. All right. It's funny because when I reflected on this, this quote itself was just really telling. There's just not a time that that we couldn't learn and grow from this space. And the first person that we can learn and grow when we think about it is ourselves. I mean, we are all personal caregivers for ourselves every single day, and maintaining well-being in this day and age is not anything that's easily done. So thanks for going through that exercise. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you putting it in the chat. Yeah, I couldn't find the hand raise either. So I planned this, but then, there it goes. So I appreciate you going through that exercise with me. But when we say the words well-being, what do we mean? So let's keep the interaction going. I'm going to keep you guys on your toes. Put in the chat, or you can unmute. What does it mean to you when you hear the term? How would you define well-being? What are your ideas about well-being?
Well, feeling overall contentment and gratitude.
Oh, I like gratitude. Yeah. Yeah. Feeling content. That's good. Feeling centered in all arenas of life. Alexandra, you have high goals. Absolutely. Holistic. Yeah. We can't just fix one part of it, can we? Can we? Anybody else? Well-being is a concept that I am listened to for my likes and dislikes, and choices are always given. There you go. I have control and I have choices. Thank you, Tina. Yeah. Okay. So Psychology Today gives it a very simple definition of, well, the experience of health, happiness, and posterity. Prosperity. Sorry. It includes having good mental health, high life satisfaction, a sense of meaning or purpose, and the ability to manage stress. So, more broadly, well-being is just feeling like life's okay, right? So with the growth of the older adult population, because we do know everybody talks about the boomer generation coming up, right? And there's a lot of them, and we're all readjusting, systems are readjusting to have this influx of aging boomers, right? And we know with the growing older adult population and the increasing emphasis on community-based care for older adults, there's a lot more research happening around caregiving, and that research is growing. And what we find is that caregivers are identifying common experiences that get in the way of managing their well-being, and that add to that ugly but growingly acceptable word of stress. And I love acronyms. So I took some of the information that was adapted from the Life Course Nexus page and came up with an acronym for what really is represented in this idea of things that commonly get in the way of managing our well-being. And the first one is, well, I'll go through all of them, but so support, that idea of having to constantly address the need for help while you try to dodge and avoid feeling like you're a burden to others. Time is simply enough time. Managing the stress and trying to avoid the overwhelm, that is a natural part of caregiving responsibilities. Reaction, the simple concern of how those we are supporting will react if we're not available. Emotions, navigating the emotional impact of caregiving, especially when roles are reversed and we as caregivers feel ourselves in a position where we need to be cared for. Self-reliance, the everyday challenge of appearing in control and not needing to ask for help. In my house, we referred to my mother as Mrs. Fine. She was always fine. Everything was always fine. My father got her a pin that said Mrs. Fine. So that idea that we can't not be fine as caregivers. And then searching for resources, that difficulty in understanding what resources are available and how to get them, especially when we are in our more challenging times. Finding ourselves not being able to help ourselves because we don't know what we don't know. The Charting Life Course Nexus has taken the next step, and together with Elevance Health, they've co-developed practices and tools to support family caregivers in these common experiences. What I love about these tools is the intentionality in prioritizing our well-being and personal needs as caregiver, while staying mindful of the connectedness and the influence of the responsibilities we hold in our loved one with a disability's life. The tools offer guidance and promote and prompts and encourage you to think about what matters most, both to you and for you. And they do this by helping you to organize your past and current experiences and your future goals. They do it by helping you focus on your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And I had to go look up what the difference was, because I was like, well, what's really the difference between mental well-being and emotional well-being? So your mental health encompasses like your overall psychological state, that rational thinking and managing difficult situations, where your emotional health is specifically related to your ability to express emotion based on your circumstances. So another way to look at it would be like mental health is about how our minds work, while emotional help involves managing and expressing your emotions. But all three are imperative. Tools to plan your next steps and make decisions. Tools to clearly express your needs and wants to others. And sometimes the first person we have to express our needs and wants to are ourselves. I can't tell you how many times in my experience with these tools, me filling it out and reading it back, it's almost like it's the first time I've ever heard it, even though it came out of my head and out of my pen. So just keep that in mind with how these tools kind of sneak up on you. And then to connect with people and resources, specifically with the idea in mind to get help and support. So our vision with Charting the Life course is for each of us to build a good life across all life domains, that whole life that Amy had spoken to before, that holistic approach, with support where needed. The support we need to maintain well-being varies for each of us in each of what we call the Charting the Life course domains. However, we all need to grow our skills and abilities over time to maintain contentment and satisfaction in our lives. This is necessary for us to maintain a healthy state of mental health and well-being. One of my favorite pieces that I read when I was preparing for this event or presentation was that article I referred to earlier in Psychology Today. It's titled, "What is Well-Being? Definition, Types, and Well-Being Skills." The article looks at well-being broadly and identified five types of well-being. They included workplace well-being, and those are the concerns of how you're able to align your professional activities. I felt the need to kind of adjust this and call these contribution activities, because not everybody works. And they include your interests, your values, your life purpose to achieve personal fulfillment, satisfaction, enrichment in all the spaces that you have an opportunity to contribute. And we need this whether we work or not. Societal well-being, being an active member in your community and environment, contributing to a vibrant and supportive culture and society. Social well-being, the ability to communicate, form meaningful relationships, and maintain a supportive network to avoid feelings of isolation. Physical well-being, focusing on caring for your body's health through healthy living and physical activity to improve overall physical function and vitality. Emotional well-being. This involves practicing techniques for stress management and relaxation, building resilience, fostering self-love, and cultivating positive emotions that contribute to your overall happiness. But I couldn't help but notice this. Watch. With a little bit of this sprinkled in, because we have to advocate for our own well-being. You can't unsee it, can you? We always say that about Charting the Life course. Every time I look at it, I start to see those pieces. So I just wanted to share that. Whoops, what happened there? Oh, we're okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So how do we get there? By giving ourselves grace, right? That is time to grow, time to relate and connect, time to care, and time to empower. Keep learning and expanding knowledge, building strong relationships and connecting with others, staying physically and mentally active, being mindful and taking care of yourself and your surroundings, and helping and supporting others by giving your time and energy. We almost have to give back to feel well. When we are only receiving, it affects our well-being, right? So let's get to the tools a little bit. But always remember to give yourself grace when you're wondering about your own well-being. So these tools look familiar, don't they? I'm going to move a few things on my screen here. We know the one-page person-centered description. This has been changed a little, but we're still kind of doing the same basic things. So when you look at this, you're creating, if you use this one page, you're creating a picture of yourself as a caregiver. You're helping yourself get in touch with what you look and feel like when you're well, and what support looks like from others and how you might seek that out. So if you look more closely at the questions, you're going to ask yourself, what's going on in my life and my caregiving journey? You're going to ask yourself, if I had the time, what would I do for myself or for my own well-being? And what are the caregiving things that I do that others could do, or I could teach others to do? It's not always a comfortable space for us to identify and talk about our own needs or how we would spend our time if we weren't caregiving, because there's guilt that goes with that. There's a very strong guilt feeling when we start thinking about what we aren't doing because we are caregivers, right? And that idea that what else is going on in my life that helps me really look at the impact of this caregiving journey, right? What I love about charting life courses, especially in the last few years, is they are not leaving us hanging. So there is a guidance tool that again helps us look at these questions and know what to ask ourselves when we're thinking about these tools. What's contributed to the well-being that we're feeling right now? What makes you feel like you? What would you like to do more of? And then I have to rearrange my screen again. What does caring for or supporting your loved one look like in day to day? Sometimes we don't even realize what we're doing in the course of a day in caregiving. We're just getting through. I used to joke when my kids were small and I had 4 under 6, people would say, "How are you?" And I would answer and I would say, "I am a victim of the day I have created. By just choosing to have these 4 children, that's where I am." And so it really is that idea of kind of really analyzing where you are, what you might be doing otherwise. So what are you giving up to be a caregiver? And then how and what support would look like, and what are you willing to let someone else try to help you with? Okay. The next one is familiar again. It's our trajectory, but they've changed our questions. And they look at it a little differently. I'll zoom in really well, but you should have copies of these, but I'll zoom in really quickly. So not only, it always keeps whenever you see one of these trajectories that changes the questions a bit, we're always going to keep that vision, that broader vision for a good life on there. We want to keep that visible. We don't want to lose sight of that when we're looking at other things. Again, you see that physical, mental, and emotional, because we know that's important. But it goes on, what kind of information or navigation? So we're looking at the buckets: information and navigation bucket, peer support bucket, and the goods and services bucket. So we see that skill building, what opportunities for connecting and networking, right? And then what goods or services. So they've worked in that whole idea of how families feel the most supported when these 3 buckets, when they have access to all 3 buckets, is when they feel the most supported. So they've added those questions in here so that, again, maintaining well-being, and it's one of those things, to take care of ourselves, we need the help of others. It can't be done alone, right? But we're always going to avoid what we don't want. What do I not want to have happen because my needs are unmet? And what is not good physical, mental, or emotional wellness? We're going to look at the past of what's worked and hasn't worked, and then we're going to move on to start identifying the little steps that we can do to build habits across and into the future. And again, because they are who they are, the Nexus has developed a tip sheet that gives you lots of help and additional questions to ask yourself or someone else if you're supporting them with these tools. And I feel like this is done very well and very thoughtfully, simply because it's really easy to jump out of trying to put our well-being at the forefront. And so the tip sheet kind of keeps you aligned. It keeps you centered. It reminds you of, when you're like, "Oh, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to walk away." It kind of keeps you engaged in a way that you can always ask yourself an additional question and stay on top of the work. They reworked the integrated support star, and they've taken the idea of the split star, but if you'll notice here, they've got yourself and the loved one that you're supporting as the 2 pieces within the split star. So personal strengths that I have and personal strengths of my loved one, relationships that I have, relationships of my loved one. So we're maintaining, because when we do caregiving, we're juggling this anyway. That idea that you're making sure that the right people are coming in and spending time with a loved one. But at the same time, who do you need to be spending time with, right? And sometimes those cross and it's a beautiful thing, but sometimes they're different. That idea that what do you love to do and connect to in the community? And then where do they like to be in the community? And sometimes those will intersect, and that makes life so much easier. But always looking at both pieces as you go through this process and identifying your path as a caregiver who wants to increase their well-being. Each one helped. And then what is your loved one eligible for? But we never think about, or I should say, I haven't really, until I saw this, thought about what I might be eligible for. How can what I contribute or what I have access to, how can that contribute to our overall well-being as a partner and pair in life? Pardon me. And the beautiful tip sheet. So again, we are not alone as we do this work. Even if I'm not in your computer screen walking you through it, you've got another tool to make sure you're able to continue to access and learn more as you go. And then the domain vision tool. And if you're familiar with this tool, this one isn't as well known, but what it does is it helps you create a vision in each domain. And it has anticipatory guidance questions here in that second column that you can ask yourself. Let me zoom in just in case somebody's watching on their phone. Where it asks you questions that help you kind of key in. How do you want to spend your days? What do you want for your job or your career? And how do you need to be supported to communicate with your employer? How do you have funds and needs for regular expenses? I love the fact that it taps into that caregiving part that impacts employment. We see that a lot in families, and it needs to be talked about more because we tend to shy away from it. That's why people like me and others end up working within disability organizations, because it's a more free, open conversation about it. It's harder in other spaces, I can only imagine, but I know that if I was in my previous job, I wouldn't have been as open about what's going on at home, right? And the struggles that we're having. But you're going to look at the visions and the needs of the caregiver, along with the vision and the needs of the person receiving care. And you're going to answer these sets of questions in each space. And then you've got the note side and the next steps. And you can see, and in the notes section, see where they conflict. Problem solve around that, potentially. Put a star together around some of those really big places where they might conflict when you're trying to meet both needs. Because what tends to happen in that space is, as caregivers, we push our needs down and we put the person forward, right? And so thinking about that a little bit more intentionally, and just because you've written it on a piece of paper, it does not mean you have to take a big step to take care of it, because then our well-being is impacted by us beating ourselves up because we haven't moved with the information that we've given ourselves. And give yourself permission to be okay, just admiring the fact that you've asked yourself the questions and you've taken the time to answer them. And they can be insightful in the moment, even if you don't take action. And that was what always scared me about this particular tool, was the idea that I had to do every domain, because then I was going to have to do everything, because that's the way my head works. But what I love is you can, in those next steps, you can say there are no next steps to this right now. We are just going to smile and admire it. And we're going to focus on this area instead. But it has all the domains. So when you look at it, flip screens, it has each one. And what I love is it also does the supports for families and the supports for services, and helps us talk about what services that we don't have that we might benefit from, and how and who do we have those conversations with, right? And again, it has I thought it had a handy dandy tip sheet, but apparently, because the anticipatory questions are added in. Sorry. Yes. So, and then earlier on, I mentioned the idea of caring for and caring about as a role within family, right? And we have our traditional caring for and caring about tools. They are not as well known. There is a great video on our FRNO website, and I'm going to tap Erica and see if she can hear me. to see if she has a chance to find the link for that caring for, caring about. If you don't, Erica, I think I mentioned it before, so I don't know if you had a chance to grab that. But if not, it is on the FRNO website or on our YouTube channel. And Barb goes through these tools in great depth. And it really is it's a great video to watch. And especially as family members. This is really difficult, but important work to be talking to ourselves about caring for and caring about. So these mapping tools, they're a little less known, but so important. And they're deeply reflective, and they ask important but sometimes really challenging questions for caregivers. Like this one comes with the guidance document, and it expands it into having questions, additional questions. So that idea of who supports the caregiver, shares their love and affection and trust. Who's doing that now? Who will do that in the future? And what are the next steps to build that? We as caregivers, when we get busy, when things get challenging, we isolate. And I can tell you that I had a form like this that I did when I was going through my ambassador training, and it was stuffed with people. I was very well networked, just for me, just the people I loved, cared about, and spent time with. And I can tell you it is not anymore. And as much as I know here, it needs to be addressed. Then you think about our family members with disability. And there's a tool where we can look at, there's your anticipatory guidance for this particular tool. Then there's a tool of looking at the needs for the person I support and how I might get help to get support in those. How can I build folks that care about them too, or that are willing to help care for them? And what would they need to know and learn to do that? So it is really, this tool really is important for you to do for yourself first, only because it is a very different space. It's a very intimate space, and it's a challenging space. And I think if, it's not a natural space for us to go with people that we support as professionals. There's very few situations, and they're probably pretty unique, that I would put this form in front of someone. I might deconstruct this, and in an intake process, or as I'm supporting a family, ask questions like, who else is in your life and how do they support you? Do you have anybody else that's helping with your child or with your family member, with your brother? So we can deconstruct these questions. But caring for and caring about is a really great concept that came out of Charting the Life course, that is introduced in Charting the Life course. And if you're interested more in looking at these tools and using these tools, one would be that video, the 1 hour. And the other one is, if you're a family member, our family implementation series, I believe, does go into these tools a little bit. So that would be another place. If you haven't participated in that I think it's 5 or 6 meeting series, that's a great space, because you will actually work on these tools in that space in the family implementation series. So, oops, I'll advance again. There we go. So these discussions really show how interconnected, interconnected the Charting the Life course domains and concepts and principles are, especially when we see it through the lens of Charting the Life course and well-being. Intentional and planned conversations between families, professionals, and teams around a broad vision for well-being are essential for people with disabilities and their families to achieve their best outcomes. Any issues or surprises in any one of these areas can slow progress or change direction of our vision and goals for the life that we want. Purposeful planning, problem solving is vital for achieving and maintaining a life of well-being that includes physical, mental, and emotional well-being. For the quality and to have that well-being lead into a quality of life for people with disabilities and their families. And I put the advocacy symbol in the middle here because we as caregivers are really good about advocating for our well-being of our person we're supporting, of our child, of our adult child, of our brother, of our sister. But we need to be able to advocate for our own well-being in each one of these domains too. And so taking the time for yourself to just try one of the tools that stepped out and kind of spoke to you. As professionals, again, well-being is a very personal subject, but you thinking about some of these questions, how you might integrate them in, deconstruct the tool itself and talk about it, and then say, you know, there's some great tools. This question clearly was, you know, a really rich conversation that I really appreciate, and I think you got something out of. You may want to try a couple of these other tools and share it that way, but go in gently and not without relationship. That's going to be really important. So tips for caregivers, and these came from the Disability and Health Information for Family and Health for family caregivers. Get informed, get support, be an advocate, be empowering, take care of yourself, and keep balance in the family. So, and again, I'm seeing the buckets. Get informed, get support, take care of yourself. So you can see the buckets again. The other one that I love is get support, take care of yourself, keep balance. It's easy to remember. It's not easy to do. Get support, take care of yourself, keep balance. And always asking yourself and kind of doing those self-checks. And some of the anticipatory questions, like we did at the beginning, that poll, on a scale from 1 to 5, how content are you today? On a scale from 1 to 5, how supported do you feel today? On a scale from 1 to 5, how do you feel that the activities and the way you spend your day are important and working for you? I forget how I worded it, but that was basically the gist of it. Self-check-ins are really important. We can't do all the things all the time as caregivers, but doing something as simple as a self-check, deconstructing and reminding those that you care about that are doing caregiving alongside of you. If you're a sibling, there might be a couple of you that are supporting a brother or sister. If you're a parent, you may have a partner or another child that helps support. Doing these checks with them and modeling that behavior for them. A lot of us as parents with kids with disabilities have a vision that at some point, another family member is going to step in and do that caregiving alongside us or for us when we're no longer here. Modeling that skill of how you do this while still maintaining your own well-being is the best gift that you can give them. So if you won't do it for yourself, do it for that caregiver that you anticipate will step in when you're no longer here. And the way we teach folks to do things like that is to model that behavior for them. I currently have a bunch of children who are active doers. They do, and they run themselves into the ground, and they got it from both of their parents who are relatively type A and very active in doing. And hindsight, I don't know that it was the healthiest approach, though I thought it was the best approach at the time. I don't know that it was the healthiest. So just keeping that in mind, we tend to do things for others as caregivers. So if you won't do it for yourself, do it for those around you that may be watching how this is done, right? So to find these tools, you're going to go to the Life Course Nexus website, and that's at lifecoursetools.com. And then in that space under, oh, I did have it in my slides and it disappeared. I thought I had it on there. You're going to go under Life Course Library. And then you're going to go to Domains. And there'll be a Caregiver Wellbeing Toolkit. space. And when you click on that, you'll go to this page. I don't know, Erica, if you can do that for me and get that link and drop it in the chat form. I thought I put the guidance on the slide, but it looks like I did not. You can also reach out to us at lifecoursetools.com. This video will be put up on the website for you to utilize and share with other family members if you would like. There's tons of tools there. If you haven't been there, I can't say it enough. Go visit. It's a pretty cool space with